As you can hear, we got a squeak in the rear end there that we're going to fix. It's the U-joint on the drive shaft. This is a rear drive shaft removal and U-joint replacement on a 2004 Bombardier Outlander 330. First thing we've done is jack up the rear end, take off the wheels, and that's the rear drive shaft there. It's pretty beat up in the back. The front's not too bad, but we're going to rip that out and replace both U-joints. You're going to need to take off the plastic cover here, and then the two bolts here, one there, for the rear caliper, and then take the rear caliper off. Don't let it hang by the line, and just set it off to the side. Next, after the brake caliper, you want to get this 15mm bolt here that bolts the drive shaft to the rear differential. As you can hear and see, this rear drive shaft U-joint is pretty loose and bad. It's got 3,000 miles on it. It's 10 years old, so it needs to be replaced. In order to get to the 13mm bolt there on the drive shaft to the engine, we had to take the side cover off for the pull start side here. And then there's a cover that screws to the frame there just above the drive shaft that goes around the gas tank there. And we had to take that off. It just made it a little bit easier to get down into the nut there and take it off. And then in order to take the drive shaft out of the frame, that shield there for the gas tank, with it off, made it a little bit easier. Once you get both the 13mm bolt on the engine side and the 15mm bolt on the differential side, you want to take the hitch cover there off with the bolts. One here, one here, one here, and one here. They're 15mm for the rear differential. We're going to take a ratchet strap and hold up the rear battery tray here. That way it doesn't fall down since it's connected to the diff. And then you just pull the differential back about 1.5 inches. And since you already have the drive shaft disconnected in the front, it should fall right out. And then pull it out from the front. Got the drive shaft out here on the workbench, ready to change out the universal joints. And we put a mark here on the yoke that matches up with the numbers here on the drive shaft. And then we did the same thing on the other side. That way the yoke and the drive shaft matches up the same. Now we're going to take out the chur clip here on all 4 sides of the universal joint, and then we'll press out the joint and press the new joint in. We've got 2 sockets here. One that's bigger than that hole and one that's smaller than that hole, and we're going to press the caps the opposite way and then back so that the U-joint comes out. You'll hear it crack there, and then now the end cap's getting pushed out the other side, and you can see the end cap there. And then it should just pull out with a pair of channel locks. Just like that, and the cap pops out. Then you flip it over, and you want to press this cap back out the other side, do the same thing. So you use your socket with the opposite end to put on the post there. And then your socket over this side, and press it back. And then the U-joint pops right out of the yoke. So we press the 2 bearings, end caps, in there. You set them by hand, you put it in, then you press them together. Then you're going to put a socket on the one end to press it in far enough to put the C-clip on the end. And then once you put the C-clip on, You switch the socket over to the other side to press that end cap far enough to put the C-clip on the other side.
As long as that's... Okay, let's check it. Just like that. Yep.
Okay. You can see the C-clips. They weren't too hard to press in. Once we got them pressed in, we're going to grease the grease fitting there on both the front and the back. And then it's cleaned all up. We'll put a little bit of grease in the splines there where it meets the differential in the engine. And then we'll put the drive shaft back in. Alright, so in order to get the drive shaft back in, we did it from the left-hand side of the bike here. We pulled the differential back about 2 inches, inch and a half, and stuck the engine side through the hole there, and then up to the engine, and got it on the spline, and then slid the differential onto the spline in the rear here by the brake caliper in order to get it into the rear differential. Then once we had it lined up, we put all 4 bolts there in the differential in order to keep it in place, and then tightened the drive shaft to the differential and the engine. If you put it in neutral, the drive shaft will turn a little bit so you can get the splines matched up on the engine side and the differential side. And then put it back into park, and the drive shaft shouldn't move, and you can tighten down the bolts there on the differential and then the engine side. While we had it apart, we're also going to change out the differential fluid. That bottom hole there below the axle is the drain plug right there, and then the fill plug is missing right there. We already took that out. You want to make sure that you take the drain plug or the fill plug out first to make sure you can put new fluid in before you drain it. If you take the drain plug out and then you can't get the plug out for the fill hole, then you can't fill it back up with fluid. So we've drained it, put the drain plug back in. We're going to put the fluid up here in the fill plug. It takes 300 milliliters, which should fill it up to the bottom edge of that hole there. And then we'll put the fill plug back in, and we're all set.